Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky. And this is the podcast where I go over every issue of G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero, the comic book, page by page, panel by panel, because this week it's another episode of Joe and Joe Illustrated. If you're new listeners, we have a lot of the archives available where we've gone over all of the Sunbow shows and the DIC shows and the, Extreme shows. And it's important that we mention DIC because today's episode of Joe on Joe is covering issue 114 of G.I. Joe, Real American Hero from Marvel Comics. And it introduces a DIC favorite. Well, not a favorite of mine. What if I did not enjoy him? Metalhead is here, guys. Bang, bang, bang. That's right. Metalhead is introduced to the pages of G.I. Joe, the comic book. Of course, Metalhead was probably the major villain, I would say, in the DIC era. He likely was used the most, and he would show up and he would annoyingly scream bang, and he had a voice. To be fair, the toy gave him a voice-activated rocket launcher, so I can't genuinely blame them for that decision at all. But man, and he worked as a perfect foil in the in the spirit of Cobra Commander with a grating voice and kind of not a great personality because he's the bad guy. So he works great. But man, did I Paul Galliano, friend of the show. We've talked about Metalhead many times. So Paul, this episode goes out to you. So that's right, guys. We're covering G.I. Joe 114 today. So if you're new to the show and this is your first episode, bang! Welcome to the show. Make sure you follow us on social media at Joe on Joe Pod. That's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're so inclined, you want to help support the show, you can go to the Patreon, patreon.com/Joe on Joe Pod, and you can sign up to become a member. $1, $3, or if you got a business, Joe-related business that you want to help sponsor, you become a great sponsor, just like our friends, the Movies in a Meal podcast.
Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie. It's about not two movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben. And each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show.
Now, the last couple of weeks, real quick, or you could send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know what you think about the show. If you, hate it, love it, loathe it, want nothing to do with it, but you can't stop subscribing, that's kind of the sweet spot. So Libsyn, my podcast launcher, they quote unquote upgraded their player. And so for the last few weeks, I haven't been tweeting out on social at the events. They show up on Facebook because it's a different modal. It's a podcatcher on Facebook, but I haven't been tweeting for the last few weeks because Libsyn's not launching the tweets. So I'm going to try a different style this week. So I apologize both to our great sponsors, Movies in a Meal podcast, but also to any of you listeners who look for the tweet and then tune into the show. I got to get that worked out, and I thought I had it worked out last week, and nothing showed up. So we're going to try again this week. Let's see, any G.I. Joe. Oh, I know what I wanted to share with you guys. So this is February 8th. And some of you may know or may not know that I've got a foot in over at one of our favorite game rental retailers. And I want everyone here to be aware of a big sale we're running. So right now, between the 8th and it ends next Monday, the 14th, you can get G.I. Joe Retaliation 4K. And that's the 4K with the Blu-ray and a digital copy, if you guys don't have it already, for only $12.99. It's used. And the discs are guaranteed to work, of course, and they send you the original case and any code. So obviously the digital code would come with that. It is a steal if you want some 4K G.I. Joe action. So G.I. Joe Retaliation, $12.99, and Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins, 4K, $14.99. Two big G.I. Joe movies on 4K of the three. I guess, there's really only, four cartoon on 4K, guys. On sale. It's free shipping. $12.99, $14.99. If you're not in the 4K world, on Blu-ray, Snake Eyes Origins is also $12.99, and I believe that's also with the digital copy as well. But if you guys are into that 4K, get it. I know my PS5 has a 4K player, but my TV is not upgraded to 4K yet, so I'm not dipping my toes in the 4K world. But I'm tempted to grab these two because one day I will be in that 4K world. I want to live in that 4K world. I want to live in that high def world. I don't know that I do, but one day I'm sure I'll have a 4K TV and it'll match the PS5. Speaking of PS5, I just finished Far Cry 6. I love those Far Cry games. And once again, I don't know why we don't have a G.I. Joe style game like those games, whether it's Far Cry or, we'll even go Call of Duty-esque stuff where it's more matchmaking stuff, but like could you imagine an open world G.I. Joe Assault on Cobra Island kind of game? Use that same Far Cry concept. You got an island. There's a certain amount, there's different patches to, places to explore and discover, and you meet up with various Joe members, and they give you, missions to run. And I mean, you literally could have every single G.I. Joe guy represented in this game. And, you're playing as pick your poison, maybe you get a choice of a few characters to play as, but you're Duke and you got to run through your Falcon or your Flint even, and you got to run the island. Oh my gosh. That would be so great. I don't know why that hasn't happened. I know there's rumblings that some people are working on that, but it seems like a no-brainer to me. And just do it. It's the Assault on Cobra Island. Just make a Far Cry clone. Just have the Joe team assault Cobra Island, and you're just fighting legions and legions of Cobras, and all the different player types the enemy types are just different Vipers, and and occasionally you run across the bosses, and the bosses are the Mindbenders of the world and the Destros of the world, etc., and so on and so forth. It writes itself. I don't get it, and Far Cry even gives you like pets, like assistants. The pets would be Timber and Polly and Junkyard and Order and Dusty's Coyote or Bobcat. What the heck was Dusty's Bobcat's name? And Freedom. You'd have Spirit's Eagle, Freedom. And you'd go up against Croc. Like it writes itself. If you guys ever played that kind of game, and I probably, actually I know this is the case. I know there are mods that do G.I. Joe skins for some games online, for some of those Tom Clancy games. Like they'll do skins for stuff like, give you a, beachhead skin or hawk or, grunt skin. And that's great too. That's very cool. But you're getting into the modding community, and not a lot of people have the ability to do that. And that's on console, man. I just think a G.I. Joe kind of game like that would just be no brainer. And if Hasbro just went to one of these devs and just said, we're going to give you money to do this. You don't have to pay us a licensing fee. We're going to pay you to, take one of your engines, convert it to a G.I. Joe game and call it a day. Kind of like, I don't know how deep in the gaming world you guys are, but like, when they did the Arkham City spin-off Arkham Origins, and they gave it to a different developer, and it used the same engine and pretty much the same assets as Arkham Origins. It changed the map a lot. Obviously, it changed the map a lot, but they basically used the same assets and engine and wrote their own game, and they were able to come out with Arkham Origins in like a year or two versus a 3-4 year cycle for an Arkham game. And yeah, that game's not as well received as everybody else, but you come out with a G.I. Joe game like that, and even make it lasers. It's not bullets. Make it red and blues. Whoa, that would be amazing. So anyway, that's my G.I. Joe hot take for the day, for the week. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm happy to report, still got a little tightness from the Cobra Lavid, but the last few days have actually been pretty good. So looking forward to talking for an hour on a microphone that'll set me back for a couple days, but that's all right. Baby steps each week. We're getting better all the time.
You were saying?
I was saying, stalker. And this week's issue is cover dated July 1991. So this is the segment for you new listeners out there where we look at other comic books that were on the shelf the same week as G.I. Joe 114. And right now we're going to start over at DC Comics, Detective Comics. Green Lantern, Volume 3, number 14. This is a wonderful story. I believe it's a four-part issue. And it is it's a 4-part issue. It's the introduction of the Mosaic world. And it went a great lengths to establishing John Stewart as the player in the DC universe that he is today. I feel, without my opinion, which is mine, without this Mosaic series, I don't know that maybe he's chosen to be in the Justice League animated show. Certainly that was the biggest push, I believe. But this Mosaic was the first time since Crisis that John was really given a push, and it actually was a positive direction instead of just being a fill-in for Hal Jordan. What happened is, in the story of the Guardians, there was a patchwork world made up all these cities, kind of like the Beyonders world in Secret Wars, but it was made up of all these cities from all these different planets, and all the people on this planet hated, they didn't hate each other, they didn't know each other. So, that's my dog. And so they didn't know each other. So, John's new job was to keep the peace and to to stitch this planet together. And so he went from being like the space cop to being this peacekeeper and bridge former, like to bring people together as a leader instead of just a guy that slings a ring and stuff. They eventually did an 18-issue series based on Mosaic, and that was wonderful. So the Green Lantern number 14 is the first time we got introduced to that concept. I would love to see an animated feature of Mosaic, or, heaven forbid, if we get to the live action point in the Green Lantern, because I think they're doing a Green Lantern series, but if we get to a point in the Green Lantern series where, they're doing something with John, and it's not just the typical story where John lets a planet die and he feels guilty about it, but that they use this as a storyline to help heal him, because that's what they used Mosaic for in this. It was a way to help heal his scars from when he let that planet die in Cosmic Odyssey. But Mosaic's great. Mosaic's really, really, really great. So what else we got? Starro is attacking in Justice League Europe number 28. If you guys caught the second Suicide Squad movie, you know who Starro is, and he's great. And he is taking over John Jones, the Martian Manhunter. Speaking of Suicide Squad, I'm now fully caught up on Peacemaker, and that show is amazing. I'm also fully caught up on Boba Fett, and those gripes are for another time. I've never been more in love with a show and more frustrated by a show. It is scratching all the Star Wars itch I wanted, and yet frustrating every bit of desire that I've ever wanted to see about actually Boba Fett. I'm so torn on this. This is such a hot topic, and it feeds into, sorry to go off on a tangent here, it feeds into this stereotype of like Star Wars fans are never happy, or Star Wars fans just like to complain or whatever. And it's like, well, does that mean that we can't have critiques? Does that mean we can't look at a situation and go, you're not doing a great job servicing Boba Fett? The Mandalorian episodes are awesome. Boba Fett episodes, not as much. Anyway, we're here to talk. We've got just a couple more. Actually, this is Tuesday. New Boba Fett tomorrow. So maybe tomorrow, maybe they're going to stick the landing, and I'm going to feel differently about these last 6 weeks. But Superman the Man of Steel number 1 is on the stands. This was the series by Louise Simonson and John Bogdanov. And it's great. First of all, Louise Simonson, I think, is a wonderful writer. I don't think she gets not the credit she deserves, but I think the recognition that she deserves. So credit, the difference between credit and recognition, credit being like, that's the person who started X, Y, or Z, or that's the person who, I don't think that's it. I don't think she's in that tier. I think the recognition is simply saying, holy cow, Louise Simonson / Jones, or was it Nee Jones? She's been around comics, one, her whole life, and two, for all this major stuff. She was the editor of the X-Men during the prime Claremont era. She created Apocalypse in the pages of Man of Steel here. I don't know if she technically created Doomsday. He does first appear in an issue of Man of Steel, but I don't know creative wise if she was, that storyline was done by committee, so who knows who actually came up with the idea, but I'm sure someone does, but I don't know if it was Louise. Point being, she was a part of that. She created Power Pack, which was a groundbreaking, fantastic, family friendly, all ages, but not pandering to series over at Marvel. She had a great run on Superman, really wrote some fantastic Superman stories. And I never think she gets the recognition that she deserves as a force in the industry. Very likely because she's overshadowed by her husband, Walt. And you guys know I've gone at length to talk about how much I love Walt Simonson, because he is such an icon. He is the guy. He is Mount Rushmore for me. But Louise is just a fabulous writer. She's just a really, really great writer. And so Superman, the Man of Steel #1 hit the stands this week.
You were saying?
The month, rather, not necessarily week. Pardon me, misspeaking there. So over at Marvel, here we go, July 1991. You can't go very far talking about July of 1991 Marvel. There's a bunch of other stuff out here. I'm looking at some stuff. Ghost Rider had that sweet glow-in-the-dark cover, which is actually pretty great and a perfect match for a Ghost Rider book, Ghost Rider 15. Ghost Rider is also on the cover of Guardians of the Galaxy, number 14. That's cool. Actually, Marvel Age 102 has a preview of Cable and X-Force and all that stuff, so it's getting people excited for that. We've got, Weapon X is still running, so that's all exciting. There's some cool stuff happening in and around the Marvel Universe. But the only thing to talk about this month is Zorro issue number 8. No, I'm just kidding. Infinity Gauntlet #1 hit the stands, guys. So Jim Starlin, George Perez, Infinity Gauntlet. What else is there to say? This book is great crossover. It is I say that, and then I'll go wax poetic about it for 5 minutes. It's a great crossover. It does suffer from the art change midway through when Ron Lim came in. And I remember at the time even being thrown. I like Ron Lim's art. It's not George Perez. Like Perez's art is just something special. So that is no shade meant at all. But this is just different, even though I do think he did an admirable job of keeping up with the style that Perez did. Obviously, this is the book that inspired half of those first 20 Marvel movies, or however many, the first 10 years of Marvel. It's an important book. There's a lot of copies out there, and it still sells for, close to near over $100 a piece. It is, it's a cool book, and it's a cool concept. It's great execution on the concept. The cover is stunningly intricate, and it tells you everything you need to know about the interiors. It's a fun miniseries. The sequels were not up to this standard, and were overbloated with crossovers. And this one certainly had a lot of crossovers too, but the main story, kind of keeps it tight enough. But I remember reading it going, oh, okay. Like, not like, oh, that was a great story. More of going like, oh, that was a fun ride. Like a roller coaster, And now years later, it's the basis for everything in the MCU. So yeah, so this is the week of Infinity Gauntlet #1. So that's the big one over at Marvel.
You were saying?
Now, in the movie theaters, we are talking, we're talking July of 1991. So we're looking at March of 1991 for what was in the movie theaters. I saw this movie on March 1st. I saw this not only in the theaters, but I saw it. I know I saw it like opening weekend. I was so excited for it because I would have been 16 years old or 15, going on 16. I was discovering my love for older classic rock music, and that's the time when you're in love with things like Jim Morrison and The Doors by Oliver Stone. Val Kilmer did a great Jim Morrison impersonation, and I know this movie's I don't know that it's held up to the test of time, but I think Morrison or Kilmer just crushed it as Jim Morrison, so much so that it makes every time it's on cable, it makes me leave it on for a little bit. I have not fully watched the whole thing in a long time, but it's got Oliver Stone's imprint on it, which is a great taste, and it's in that he was in that era of Doors and JFK and the one with Mickey and Mallory, Natural Born Killers, where it's just this kind of gonzo's not the right word, but like an extreme filmmaking, for a major motion picture, like in your face kind of stylized filmmaking. I saw him once at a theater in Century City, and I did not say hello to him, but I appreciate. I was like, hey, you're Oliver Stone. Now, on the 8th, we've got Michael J. Fox and James Woods in The Hard Way, where Michael J. Fox is a Hollywood actor teamed up with James Woods, notorious creep in real life, and he has to learn to be a cop. That's in theaters on March 8th. But not the best movie. There's two other great movies. One is New Jack City, which didn't introduce us to Wesley Snipes, but it was a coming out party for Wesley Snipes. It was, hey world, pay attention. Wesley Snipes is here. It's also got Ice-T, Chris Rock's in it, directed by Marva Van Peebles. New Jack City is great. But the other one is La Femme Nikita. If you guys have never seen it, it's a Luc Besson movie, and it's great. They've done a million TV shows on it, but this is the original in French, I believe, and it's really, really good. They know they did an American adaptation. They also did multiple TV shows and all that stuff, but the original La Femme Nikita came out on the 8th of March. March 15th, If Looks Could Kill, starring Richard Grieco, fresh from 21 Jump Street and into the big screen. Richard Grieco in If Looks Could Kill. Oh boy. What else? On the 22nd, March 22nd. So you're reading G.I. Joe 114 and you say, hey, what am I doing today? I'm going to go to the movie theater. You're a 14, 15-year-old kid. I'm going to go and I'm going to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. That brings you back. That movie's actually a lot of fun. I think that movie really holds up. And, of course, the great Frank Welker doing some voices there. And when you're at the movies now, you get out of the movie theater and you're like, man, my mom's not going to be here for another 3 hours. What do we do? I'm going to go see another movie on March 22nd. I might as well go see Defending Your Life, which is one of the greatest films of all time by the great Albert Brooks. And obviously that's not for kids, but as you get older, you appreciate it more and more and more and more and more. Albert Brooks dies, goes to heaven, and it is literally that. He has to defend his life and his life choices to make the case that he's okay to go to heaven. And just fabulous. If you've never seen Defending Your Life, take some time to watch it. Anything by Albert Brooks is always worth watching. What's the one, the traveling one across America? Lost in America. So freaking good. It's so good. And then on March 29th, for all you young boys out there, whoever watched Jennifer Connelly ride a hobby horse outside of a Walmart, I give you career opportunities. Possibly the greatest trailer in the history of 15-year-old trailers. Enjoy it. And that's all we're going to say.
You were saying?
I was.
Now, mass is ready.
G.I. Joe 114. Fabulous cover. Andy Kubert. Again, we are dipping. I mentioned this a little last time. I'm going to say it again. We're dipping into that image here. We're getting into that scratchy, You know, that scratchy, smoky Image era. And fun figure work on the front. A lot of close-up action going on. And I'm here for it. I think it's a fun cover. I think the introducing Metalhead is it's placed literally the only place you could possibly place that on this cover. Was he the character sensation that we needed to talk about? I think he was. I think they were really banking on him being a fan favorite. It had been a few years since we were introduced to I guess character based villain, like a character villain instead of just a nameless, saw viper, nameless type of viper. So that's exciting. Dusty and Rock and Roll V2 and Salvo, the Right of Might, they're on the cover fighting. It's a fun, sketchy, very sketchy cover, but I'll give them a plus on that.
Yo, Joe!
So we start with a bang, no pun intended. Benzheen City and the Emirate of Benzheen. So we've been here for quite a few issues since I think, was it 107 or 108? And it's the war for the oil fields in Benzheen. It's mirroring what was going on in Iraq at the time with the takeover of Kuwait. And we see that the infantry guys are following some of the heavier tanks with the Joes. And it's Dusty and Salvo and Rock and Roll. And they're riding a hammer alongside the pulverizer, and I'm not sure what the other one is right now. So they're wading right into some HISS tank battalion. So they're kind of giving each other the business. And basically the guys in the hammer are getting picked on by the guys in the heavy and in the heavy machinery.
Yo, Joe!
Story in a big 2-page spread is called Metalhead. Script by Larry Hama, pencils by John Statema. He's back and he's doing a great job. Randy Emberlin inks, Rick Parker letterer, Bob Sharon colorist, Bobby Chase editor, DeFalco in chief. This page, if you've got this book in front of you, it's a 2-page spread, and to my eyes, it looks like this was blown up from a smaller image. The lines are thicker. There's not as much detail. If you're, I don't know how else to describe this. If you're looking at this, you might know what I'm talking about. So it just feels like they took, like maybe he had done a half-page spread, or even this was or just might have actually just been I don't know how you would format that for just a 1-page splash page, but there's a lot in this main image, though, to me, that looks blown up. Like they made it bigger than it was originally intended to be when drawn. And technically,
Yo, Joe!
since it's a 2-page spread, we're not turning the page, but we're now on page 3, and they're stumping the armors the best. So now,
Yo, Joe!
we're on page 4, and Steeler is back now. Here's, based on the way people have been getting killed left and right in the last few issues, as soon as I saw Steeler, my heart sank, because I assumed, oh no, they're going to kill Steeler in this issue. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Larry did that on purpose, like saying, let's use Steeler in this because it'll make everyone think he's also going to die. And it's a wonderful feint. It's an absolute brilliant stroke. Spoiler alert, Steeler doesn't die. But it's an absolute perfect use of Steeler, someone we hadn't seen in quite a while. They even keep him, he's in his original green togs. They haven't updated him or anything. So yeah, as soon as I saw Steeler, I absolutely assumed he was going to die. But it's a page of giving everyone giving the guys in the hammer the business, saying like we wouldn't want your little baby vehicle, your little wheeled vehicle to get damaged, etc. and so on. Salvo says, Steeler, you've been inhaling diesel fumes for too long, etc. and so on and so forth. They're just, and it's fun. This is a really nice character stuff that they're building between the ranks. So, even in a tight-knit group like G.I. Joe, there's still room to, bust chops and all that stuff.
Yo, Joe!
Before we go any further, there is an ad here for the G.I. Joe trading cards. Recruit your own team of special forces. 10 Hut, 200 cards in all, the front of each one blazing with color and action, the back filled with top secret information. Someone send this to Logan Paul. He had a steal on these. Now, in the Republic of Quagmire, that's funny, Quagmire, a neutral state bordering both Benzheen and Trucial Abysma, we've got the Emir of Benzheen. Now, remember last issue, he sold out the Joes by calling Cobra Commander and he was trying to negotiate he'd pay Cobra Commander to stop it. And he told him where the Joes were. And that resulted in the explosion death of Battle Force 2000. Don't hold that against Cobra Commander, or don't, you know what I'm saying? Whether you think it was good or bad to get rid of Battle Force 2000. I would say it's still bad because the Emir is not a good dude. So he's going to meet Cobra Commander, and it's in a it's in a Casablanca type style bar. A bunch of lowlifes and reprobates are hanging out inside, having drinks and stuff. It's a fun little picture. It's like it's the Star Wars cantina with just made up of just the lowest looking dudes. There's a guy with a tattoo on his forehead that says Deadhead. Dude with like 4 teeth in his mouth. There's a prostitute on the stairs waiting for somebody to come upstairs so she can murder. And then we get him being introduced to Cobra Commander. He's surrounded by night creepers and waiting for the Emir of Benzheen to show up.
Yo, Joe!
Now, the tanks are making their way through town. And the Hammer, the infantry guys, they're complaining that the tanks are moving too fast. And the tanks are like, what are you talking about? Come on, like no one can hurt us. We're indestructible. We're moving how fast we want to move. And as they say that, introducing Metalhead, and I like the way they draw this because he just pops up. Like he's not foreshadowed in this one picture, but you can tell where he is based on the statue and the framing of the statue in the center of the square. It's a statue with a vase of water she's holding over her shoulder. So then when he attacks the tank and he hits the statue too, you could tell based on the way he is positioned to the vase of where he's coming through in the first picture. And also there's not scaffolding. What's what do you call it? Fire escapes on the side of the building. Although I don't think buildings in the Middle East have fire escapes, but there's fire escapes. So that what I'm saying artistically is that does place where he's coming from hiding without foreshadowing his hiding spot. So he sneaks up as much as he does on the Joes, but it's not a cheat is what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's good. Statma does the legwork in the second panel to make it not a cheat. And he fires some rockets and he hits the tanks a little bit, blows up the statue, and he introduces himself. He says, Metalhead's the name and tank bustin's the game. So the tank starts shooting at him, but it's just one dude on foot. So the tanks, the heavy cannons are going to have trouble hitting him, right? And Steelers was knocked out of commission. So the pulverizer was quote unquote pulverized. And then Metalhead and Heavy Metal. I did this a lot on the other when we were doing the DIC stuff. I would always say Heavy Metal and Metalhead. So Metalhead makes his way down the alley and gets away.
Yo, Joe!
And Steeler is offered a ride on the Hammer with the infantry guys, and he basically says thanks, but no thanks. He's going to ride the Raider, because he says I'd rather be on a real fighting vehicle than a tricked out station wagon, which gets the goat of rock and roll to no end. It gets hilarious. So they literally just had a vehicle blow up under them. They're under heavy fire and they're still busting each other's chops. So they, instead of following them down the alley, Salvo points out that, hold on a second, there's a bare patch that there's going to be an anti-tank mine. So we can't follow him that way. Don't be stupid.
Yo, Joe!
Now back over in Quagmire, Cobra Commander and the Emir are figuring out a deal. I like the way they do this. I like when they do this in movies and TV and comic books where you cut away and then you cut back to it and there's no actual dollar amount discussed. Because anytime you kind of lock in, except for some very specific stories, obviously, but even then, like, whenever it's like about the money, like I need $1,000, so I'm going to die. But usually even those stories, when it's locked into a certain amount of money, as time goes by, it ages it for you. So you're watching, it could be a great movie and you're watching it and you're like, and the person's doing all that just for $1,000. Like there's this mental, and you could always say, oh, $1,000 back in 1984 is different than $1,000 in 2002 or 2022. But even as hard as you try there's still a mental like switch, you know what I mean, in your head where you're devaluing it. There's really no way to keep up with that. So in this case, it just cuts directly to Cobra Commander saying, no way am I selling you your country back for such a piddling sum, 10 times that or no deal. So we don't know what he's offering them, but all we know is Cobra Commander's asking for 10 times. And that makes this moment timeless. So I think that's a trick. It's a good trick to use when you're creating stuff like this. If you can avoid using dollar amounts, but having people talk about it, in multiples or sums or, vast quantities or whatever, open briefcases and look at things or slide numbers across the table, that kind of thing. I think it adds an air of timelessness to the story. So the Emir thinks he's slick and he doesn't like this 10 times thing. So he hits a little beeper button and the trunk of his car opens and these white clad Emir assassins come running out and they come running in this, this bar full of dredges of humanity. And they say, everybody down on the floor with your hands in the air.
Yo, Joe!
And this is awesome. Those guys just get murdered. All the thugs. I don't even know if the guys in the bar are actually Cobra, to be absolutely honest. I don't even need them to be Cobra. They're just dirtbags. So when these state-sponsored assassins come running inside, every person in that bar just shoots them and murders them. It's great. And then in the room with the Emir and Cobra Commander, the Night Creepers, they go into action too. They kill the Emir's bodyguard that's with him, who was reaching for an Uzi, and they put a knife to the Emir's throat, leaving Cobra Commander to say, now as we were saying about the price.
Yo, Joe!
Back in Benzheen at this tank trap, the guys find themselves in what they call it later on. They call it a maze. It's Dragon's Teeth trap. Yeah. Dragon's Teeth of like where it's large pylons of cement or metal that tanks can't get through. Traditional tanks can't navigate through that. So you do that to stop forward infantry. So they hit this town square and there's a ton of these Dragon's Teeth traps. So it's impassable, except Steeler says, hey, the Raider, we've got 2 pairs of articulated tracks on this baby. So with the dual tracking, they can actually get over this. So I guess if you've only got 1 track, it's impossible. With the 2 tracks, apparently, that can get them over these. But it definitely stops the hammer. So the hammer, and first of all, you can't stop the hammer. But apparently, the robot, Rock and Roll says, let's go around.
Yo, Joe!
And as they do that, Dusty sees a manhole cover move and makes the move to himself to get those guys off the hammer. So he pulls Rock and Roll and Salvo off the car. And of course that was Metalhead, who popped up out of this sewer and launched some rockets at him or threw something at him. We actually don't see what he hit him with. But he's showing a smoking shoulder missile launcher. So I'm assuming that's what he hit him with, but he quietly goes back into the sewers.
Yo, Joe!
And he has chained the sewer so they can't follow him. And now he says, now to take out that last G.I. Joe vehicle, we got a clean sweep working here, a shutout. And this is the page where it dawned on me that Salvo and Metalhead are pretty much the same character. I mean, one's obnoxious and one just wears a giant Might His Right shirt. So maybe they are the same character. But basically Salvo's the same guy, where he carries the shoulder mounted missile launcher and he's there to bust tanks. So I like that they chose to use him in the same way, because even though Metalhead's the one doing his job, it's Metalhead versus the tanks, and there's no tanks for Salvo to go up against. But it is nice. It's a nice parallel use in the story. But the guys get all their wants. So now their infantry are back on their feet. So Dusty's got his weapon, and Rock and Roll's got his twin undermounted cannons, which we all don't understand how he's able to hold. And then Salvo's back up there. And it's great because Salvo's got 2 guns. He's got a shoulder-mounted rocket launcher that he's holding with his right hand. And then in his left hand, he's got a big old like cable-looking gun. There's out of the 3 dudes, the only one with a free hand is Dusty. Just pointing that out.
Yo, Joe!
So now in the Raider, they can't find Metalhead. Except someone who's a Stealer sees him up top. And they see him that he popped out of a manhole. And so they're going to go chasing after him. And they go down an alleyway. And which is weird because I would have thought like I wouldn't be chasing down an alleyway based on the previous experience with they knew there was a mine there. But they do, but this time it's not a mine that they run into. According to Metalhead here, I have, quote, I have my blasting machine set up behind my sandbag bunker. It's wired to the explosive charge in the structural walls of the building. So he's going to bring the building down on them. It's nice. I will say this, artistically, this whole issue is built around Metalhead sneaking in and popping out. And artistically, they're doing a great job with it. They're showing him in moments. They're showing brief glimpses of him popping in, popping out. He's in the shadow a lot. He's kind of ninja-esque, even though he's not. He's like kind of the opposite of a ninja. But based on how he's interacting with these tanks, that's kind of how they're treating him artistically, and it works really well.
Yo, Joe!
And we get a little kaboom. The walls fall down. The Joes are trapped inside. Now this is actually where I thought we were going to lose Steeler. I really did. But the Raider's going to be able to make its way out. But in the meantime, that's when Metalhead shows up, and we get a half-page splash of Metalhead firing all the missiles. Like every missile he has gets fired at the Raider in a just a big barrage explosion.
Yo, Joe!
And strangely, he only targets the tracks, which is weird. Like, it does stop the Joes, but that close with that many missiles, I would think it would do more than the tracks. But he just hits their tracks, so now they can't move. And they're on fire, so they're going to pop the canopy, so they're going to roast inside again. I thought this was how Steeler was going to die. The emergency release is broken, and while they're trying to get that, there's something coming along the radio. It's an emergency announcement from Hawk. And Metalhead gets them in his sight. Now he's got that eye-mounted visor, of course the visor's eye-mounted, but it's the visor-mounted targeting module. So it's basically whatever he looks at is what he's targeting at. And he says they're all lined up for the kill. Laser targeting system engaged. This is a fun little. He's using Stark Incorporated technology, everybody. According to page 19 of G.I. Joe 114, Metalhead is using Stark Incorporated technology. Is Stark arming Cobra? What?
Yo, Joe!
And as that happens, rock and roll pops out of nowhere. So the infantry shows up to save the lives of the tank jockeys, which is great because they were the ones giving them the business. And it's the infantry on their feet. You know, they're not relying on the tanks to get around. They showed up, and rock and roll basically says that the targeting won't work unless you keep your head up, out of cover long enough. So that sends Metalhead scurrying for cover. And, so now they're just in more of a traditional firefight. And Metalhead's, he's on his heels, but he's sticking around, and he's gonna, all he needs is to poke his head out and get one eyeball on him. Then he can fire his missile. Now,
Yo, Joe!
we also got an ad here for the Marvel Superheroes role-playing game. Who played this? I had this. It's the cover with the Hulk busting through the wall, and Spidey and Captain America, She-Hulk and Wolverine. They're all kind of running through it, waving high. And I had this, and we played like maybe 3 campaigns. And very little role playing, all just fighting, and that's all we did, and that's as much as I got. I say that because I am expecting to get the G.I. Joe role playing game, and we'll see if we get a game going and what that sounds like. But back to the Joe action, Salvo launches his missiles, and his missiles are keeping Metalhead's head down, so he can't attack them back. Dusty comes out of the smoke. Now this page is I talked a little bit about going very imagey last issue. We talked about that on the cover today. This drawing of Dusty, to my eyes, very imagey. Just very lots of hash marks, lots of hatching. Very, very grimacy, that kind of a thing. Like we're getting more exaggerated cartoon poses here versus the more preferred real look of G.I. Joe. So we're starting to dip our toes into that world, and it's 1991. It's July 91, or well, actually technically March, I guess, but it's 91, so it's that era.
Yo, Joe!
And Dusty is on him, and he's shooting, and they're just gonna go at it. But as that is happening, they get yelled at, and we hear a ceasefire. And word is out on all frequencies, on G.I. Joe and Cobra radio, that no one won this war. The Emir made a deal with Cobra Commander. So Cobra is pulling out, and the Emir is pulling the welcome mat out from under the Joes. And every person involved in this fight, from Salvo to Rock and Roll, Steeler, Metalhead, Dusty, they say, well, I'll be hornswoggled. And, yeah. So everyone stops fighting because they were all sold out. Now.
Yo, Joe!
Midnight. Way back on Cobra Island. So we've just had, 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This is 14. 7 great issues of, the war in Iraq kind of a story. You would think that'd be good enough to wrap it up and go, okay, we're good. No. Larry Hama, the king of balancing storylines. And once again, it's usually comes in threes. This one did have threes if you consider the Emir storyline to be the B plot. That interwove with the A plot of these guys fighting Metalhead. The B plot influenced the A plot by causing the ceasefire. You then also have a C plot that gets you going to the next issue. So even in a run of issues where it's just fight, the same focus, we still want to get a teaser to get people thinking about what's going to come in the future, which is so smart and so great. So Midnight on Cobra Island, we got a bunch of Vipers, and they're patrolling the old volcano. And remember last time we saw the volcano, I don't remember what issue, but was it around 99, was it, or 100? Cobra Commander trapped all those dudes inside. Dr. Mindbender, Zartan, Billy, Captain Min. There was a cook in there involved. There were a bunch of Vipers, and these guys are patrolling this, and it's at night, so it's midnight, and a bunch of Vipers are patrolling this just to make sure that no one's alive. And this is like, so I think their time, I think it's been months. I mean, it's definitely been months. But remember, we did the math on it, and we realized that Cobra Commander really was thought dead for in their time years, and they say that here. Everyone thought Cobra Commander was dead for years. So I'll bet you this has been close to a year that he buried the freighter and all this stuff has gone down. And they, sure enough, they find a tunnel that's been dug out from the inside. So the Vipers are, they say, sound the alert, seal off the island, send the Techno Vipers and the Toxo Vipers. We don't know what's down there.
Yo, Joe!
And here we go. Later on, the Vipers find that they're all dead, and there's a bunch of dead bodies down here. I think that's Captain Min on the right. And they say, not everybody. Someone dug their way out. Most of these people died in agony, like they were poisoned. And here's the culprit: botulism. They were living off the cans of ham and lima bean sea rats, and they hit a batch that had gone bad, and that's what killed everybody. Now they quickly identify. This is the Techno Viper. Quickly identifies them, scans the bodies, and they realize that missing amongst this crew is Zartan and Billy. So Zartan and Billy likely were the guys that escaped it. Now, we also get on this final panel, because this doohickey that this Techno Viper is using is very old school Marvel looking, like Shield looking. The words Jack Kirby are inscribed in it. Now, I think, hold on a second. 1 second. Pardon me. I'm Googling something. Oh, no. He was still around for us. Yeah, so this is just a Kirby tribute. So we've got Jack Kirby's name drawn into the artwork on this final panel. So we're going to find out more about what happened on the thing. The most gruesome one is the guy's face on a "Have a Nice Day" poster on the top. That's pretty gruesome because it looks like a door or something that someone smashed over someone's face. I don't think that's Mindbender because he would have been totally bald, but it's pretty gruesome. So we'll revisit that and find out everybody who died in there soon enough, I'm sure. But we've got a character profile on our man Flint. That's a great wrap up of all his great appearances. His boastful first appearance in issue 37, standing side by side with Destro and Lady J in 57. Interrupted by a Cobra infiltrator with Lady J in 72. Goes on that joint mission with the October Guard in 101 through 105. And then we've got Postbox from the Pit. We've got some letters here from Nick Johnson out of Rye, New York. Donald Snyder out of Newport, Pennsylvania. Razali bin Abdul Rahim out of Singapore. That's cool. Elizabeth Galley, address withheld. And Justin Vala, Valla, out of Culver, Minnesota. Justin Vala, isn't the Valaverse? Isn't any relation? There's only one L here, so I'm going to guess no, but wow. And we do get a tease on this page that we've got the Echo Warriors on their way, guys. The Echo Warriors, everyone's favorite sub-squad with Flint at the helm, the Echo Warriors. So there you go. That's it for G.I. Joe 114. Man, I don't know if it's a great issue. I don't think it's a satisfying wrap up to what's been an amazing story, but I think that might have been the point of it because the war ends for them as abruptly as it kind of does for us. And I think that's the point. And I think that's in and of itself is very satisfying. Where, they're all there fighting for what they think is a cause, and they expect there to be a victory on either side of said cause. And both metalheads, in this case, just using those guys, Metalhead, it was like, well, I thought we were taking over this nation. No, we're done. Oh, okay. And the Joes are like, well, I thought we were No, we're not even Oh, okay, we're done. So everybody's done. And to what end? The Joes lost a bunch of people. So I think that's a really smart way to end it. Again, I will say, I don't know why these 7 or 8 issues have never been collected as they really should be collected as a story, because I think it works really well. You do a little intro to it, explaining at the time, this was a kind of a parallel to the war that was happening, and blah blah blah, and just rest in peace. So there's a lot of dead Joes. Steeler lived though, and that's exciting. So listen, thank you everyone for listening. Now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.